It could also be coming up as Amelia Porterfield because she's using a staff person's computer. Not sure.
I believe we just let her in. Maybe. Yep, there's Amelia.
How's my sound?
I hear you.
Well, great. Thank you. Jessica, you just let me know when you want to start. Sorry for the delay. Little technical difficulties on our end. So
No worries. If you're ready, I'm ready.
wonderful.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning for this update about our wildfire situation across the state. First of all, I want to start off by saying, as Oregon's governor, my top priority is to make sure that Oregonians are protected, that their communities are protected. And to be very honest, our wildfire season is off to a very aggressive start. We're putting a lot of resources out right now, and it seemed an appropriate and important time to touch base with Oregonians about what the situation is. My office is working closely with agencies on the front lines to ensure we're putting our strongest foot forward to manage multiple wildfires across the state with every tool at our disposal. So this is what we know right now. And just this past week, I've declared 5 conflagrations. Thousands of lightning strikes earlier this week resulted in over 100 new fires detected just so far. Wildland firefighting resources have been working around the clock to detect fires early and put them out as quickly as possible. Our 6 state incident management teams, 3 from the Oregon State Fire Marshal and 3 with the Department of Forestry, have been deployed to protect life, property, and our natural resources from very large fires. The Oregon Department of Emergency Management, the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, local fire departments, rangeland protection associations, and others are working in lockstep to address these fires. I declared a statewide emergency declaration for wildfire, enabling the deployment of the National Guard and access to other state resources around the nation. We called in resources from the state of Washington and the state of California to bring in more structural firefighters and equipment. In the last several days, the Oregon Department of Forestry received more than 70 critical fire line leadership personnel and strike teams of engines from New Mexico, Idaho, Montana, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Colorado, and Florida, with more expected in the coming days. We simply cannot thank our state partners from around the nation for their support. It's incredibly critical right now, and Oregon thanks them. During this period, we have had tremendous support from our local fire service response. Our local structure fire service response has supported 24 task forces, over 300 firefighters, nearly 100 engines, and 24 water tenders. I cannot emphasize enough, this is a dynamic, fast-moving situation for our state, and we will continue to use every resource, every personnel that we can get our hands on to fight these fires. I want to take a moment to directly speak to my fellow Oregonians. It is absolutely essential that you are aware of the fires in your area. You need to be familiar with the evacuation levels and be prepared in case you or your family needs to evacuate. If you don't feel safe, do not wait for a higher evacuation level to be issued. We expect continued high temperatures, followed by another lightning event through this weekend. We all have a role to play this week, this weekend, and throughout the wildfire season. Let's, each of us, do everything we can to prevent sparking more wildfires. I want to thank all of our firefighters who are on the ground right now. This is about more than resources. It's about the people on the ground doing the work in some of the most difficult, physically taxing, and rapidly evolving situations that you can possibly imagine. They are putting everything on the line to protect what what Oregonians hold dear: our lives, our homes, our natural areas. Our firefighters are working at all hours of the day and in night conditions that are hard for many of us to fathom. I am absolutely moved by their courage and selfless commitment to safeguarding our state and our communities, and we all owe them a debt of thanks. And it's going to be a long wildfire season, and we need each and every one of them. I also want to thank our tremendous leaders across our agencies. Oregon is blessed with an incredible team of seasoned folks who know how to deal with these situations. You'll be hearing directly from 3 of them. With us today, we have Deputy Director Kyle Williams of Fire Operations for the Oregon Department of Forestry. We have our Oregon State Fire Marshal with us, Mariana Ruiz-Temple, and we have our Director of the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, Erin McMahon. And so with that, I believe we will start off with hearing from Forestry, hearing from Deputy Director Kyle Williams. Kyle.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Kyle Williams, Deputy Director of Fire Operations, Department of Forestry. I'm going to provide you a statewide view of our fire situation. Jessica, if you could enable screen sharing, please.
Please mute.
One moment, please.
That's okay. Well, Jessica's working on that. As the governor mentioned, we've got some pretty challenging weather conditions currently upon us. Today is actually probably the best day we're going to see from a fire weather standpoint for the next few. Stay hot and dry today, but we're anticipating significant threat from lightning beginning tonight, tomorrow, and Monday. So what that means is that the fires we've got now may just be the beginning for what we're going to be dealing with into next week. We're prepared for that. Both ourselves and the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office prioritize initial attack, and we've staged resources throughout the state to be able to address that threat. Really quickly, what you're seeing right now is a statewide view. Each one of these little orange spots, the flames or the purple squares, are individual fires that are burning at the moment. I'm going to start in the southwest corner of the state, and this is where the good news is right now. Aggressive initial attack over the last several days has kept most of the large fires off the map in this part. That's a good news. As we move a little bit north, you orient to Crater Lake here, we have several fires. And for folks on the call, to clarify, the green is generally U.S. Forest Service property. The brown and white is generally BLM or private property. The Department of Forestry protects that brown and white. The U.S. Forest Service protects that green. So you can see there are several orange spots that represent fires. The darker the red, the more aggressive the burning. There are teams either engaged or en route to the state of Oregon to try and get our arms around this situation in this part of the state. These are relatively new from the lightning we had at the end of the week, so they have not progressed quite as aggressively as the ones on the east side so far. I'm going to scan then to the central part of the state, and this is where we both Chief Ruiz-Temple and ourselves are heavily engaged. We're just wrapping up over here on the Larch Creek fire that was burning out of Ty Valley. That's a good news story. We were able to get on that quickly, have a lot of success with our partners, and we're winding down and leaving that fire this weekend. Over here, these are the relatively new ones that we've been engaging on. The Department of Forestry has a team in to take this complex of fires. It's called the Battle Mountain Complex. It's going to include Owen, Snake, and Monkey Creek. Chief, I'll let you speak on what your teams have going on out there.
Thank you. And I would categorize these series of fires, the Lone Rock and the series of fires that Deputy Director just indicated, as a very dynamic, challenging, and complex area of the state. Over the last 24 to 48 hours, both the Oregon Department of Forestry and Department of State Fire Marshal, along with our partners, have been focused on prioritizing resources to protect communities and state lands. And I would just state that those individuals in these areas, to the governor's point, be very aware of evolving evacuation levels as these teams work to gain containment and prioritize protection to life and safety. We are currently on the Lone Rock fire as well. and moving the Boneyard fire into our conflagration as we speak. And we continue to triage and focus and prioritize resources with the Oregon Department of Forestry and our state partners.
Thank you, Chief. As Chief mentioned, Lone Rock, Boneyard are additional. There's an interagency management team that has control of Lone Rock. We have resources helping on that, especially focused on this south end. It's been a very challenging fire the last several days. Hard winds blowing out of the north, pushing this fire. Aggressive engagement on both of these right now, as well as Monkey Creek. And individual small fires that you don't see on that map are taxing our local resources significantly in that area. Next, we'll move down the map a little bit. You saw that from a high level. This Durkee fire is relatively newly emerging last couple days. It's making some significant runs. We've got our rangeland protection associations heavily engaged in this part of the state and helping fight this fire, as well as the Chief's resources. So Chief, to you.
Yeah, one thing I would note on this map that you're not seeing is the structural layer that does sometimes bog down the map. However, the Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal has responsibility for protection of structures, regardless of the color of lands that you see there. Thank you, Deputy Director. So the orange dots are structures. As we speak, we are mobilizing resources to Durkee. That fire has become complex and exceeded the local capacity. And so at this time, we are surging resources there in protection of the structures. You see that fire wants to move south. And as that continues through the drainages and the lands, it could have impacts to other areas other areas of that. So that is now becoming one of our priority fires as well. It will be under immediate response initial attack, working with our state and local partners there. And I just want to give a shout out to our local landowners and RFPA who've done a yeoman's job of really trying to hold a lot of these fires as Kyle and I have worked to direct resources around the state.
Thank you, Chief. Cow Valley is a good news story. That was a large fire, at least as far as getting it put out. It's a good news story. Over 100,000 acres, very aggressive, burning in light fuels and winds. The yellow indicates that it's in good shape now. And so that one should be coming off the map, and we are surging resources from there into the Durkee incident. The next significant fire of note that we want to talk about is the Falls Fire down here in the Burns area. As you orient, there's Burns. This is the Silvies Valley and John Day. This fire has been really challenging from the beginning. It's been on the map for about a week. Heavy engagement from our partners in the Forest Service, Department of Forestry, and the Rangeland Protection Associations. The south end on the Burns side is in pretty good shape. There's good line in there. And we're working really hard on this north end right now to get it. Aggressive attacks at night. That's when we have our opportunity to get around this fire. And we've been doing that for several days now. We're really focused on these mega fires. If folks have heard that, fires over 100,000 acres, trying to get them off the map so that we can free up these resources to then spread them out to keep the smaller fires off the map that we anticipate seeing over the next couple of weeks. Chief, anything to add on Falls?
Yeah, as the Deputy Director indicated, the Falls Fire is Oregon's second mega fire of the year. That is concerning in terms of the type of fuels and conditions we're seeing. The Cow Valley Fire was our first mega fire, and it was our first conflagration that we've seen in 29 years in Malheur. And so that's just a nod to the conditions on the ground, the size of these fires, and the amount of uncontained fire that we're working to, as he indicated, get off the map so we can move resources to other areas of the state. The Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal is on this fire as a conflagration, working with our local cooperators, like you said, to button up the areas of concern. To the south of that fire is Burns and Hines. In addition, the Burns Paiute. And so we are working very closely with our tribal partners as well as we focus to gain containment on the south side.
Thank you, Chief. And so as the governor mentioned, we're relying on our partnerships with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office to best protect Oregonians. It's a really fluid and effective partnership that includes those out-of-state resources that the governor mentioned, and we have them coming from everywhere. It also includes our Oregon National Guard. And so as I zoom out and you see this big black circle, we have a medevac ship provided by the Oregon National Guard staged in John Day to help us in case anything, a firefighter gets injured, we can quickly respond and get them the medical attention they need. We actually have two, one staged in John Day and another in Southern Oregon. And so again, complete and coordinated across the state right now, relying on every available resource. That's why we share our resources in our off season so that we can get those reciprocated from other states this time of year and other countries, frankly, we're reaching out. So with that, I would turn it over, I think, to Erin.
Great. Thanks a lot, Kyle. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Erin McMahon. I'm the Oregon's Director of the Department of Emergency Management. And as the director, it's my role to go ahead and coordinate all those wraparound additional services that go to support our fire response. So I'm working directly with the local emergency managers to make sure that they have the resources they need by coordinating and bringing in those resources across the state. Today, I know we have a little bit of time, and I just wanted to emphasize two things. We're going to be dropping in the chat, or I don't know if Shirley was able to share her screen. We're going to be providing to you some handouts that focus on two things. One is being informed, and the other one is about knowing your evacuation levels. We have so far had 88 evacuations across the state as a result of these wildfires. So it's really important that we first be informed. How can they be informed? They can be informed by registering with oralert.gov. This is a website that you can go to that ties you directly into your local emergency information sites, which will then provide you direct information about what's going on in your area. So be informed, also not just registering at oralert.gov, but also by looking at your local emergency manager sites and going ahead. Yep, thanks Shirley for dropping that in the chat there. And talking to your local community responders. The next one is knowing that evacuation levels. As I mentioned, 88 so far. So our evacuation levels are 3. First, level 1, green. At the level green, we need folks to be ready. So if you hear you're at level 1, be ready. That means go ahead and start to charge those cell phones. Those cell phones are going to be critical to provide that additional information that you need. Understand what your evacuation routes are. Get that go bag together and know where you're going to be going when you do head out. Are you going to be going to a shelter? Are you going to be staying with some family and friends? Level 2, that's yellow. Be set. Get that go kit in your car so that you can be ready to go. Remember, pay attention to the information that's going out as the situation is going to be changing, could be changing rapidly. Level 3 is red. Go now. That means get in your car and get out of there without delay. Do not stop and do not return to the site until after you've gotten the all clear. This is particularly important with wildfire as fires get tamped down and sometimes they come back up. So pay attention to the information that's being provided to you on that. Once this emergency is over, OEM, together with your hardworking local emergency managers, are going to continue to work with you to deliver those wraparound services and capabilities to help in Folsom recovery. And this brings me to my last bit of information that we're going to be dropping in the chat, and that is wildfire.oregon.gov. This is where you will go to find additional information on next steps. So final information on that, please stay connected so that everybody can stay safe. And back over to you.
Thank you, everyone. We're now going to move on to the question and answer portion of the conference. Please use the raise your hand function and you'll be called on in the order you raised your hand to unmute. To make sure that everybody has the opportunity to ask a question, we're allowing for 1 question and 1 follow-up to that question per person. When your question has been answered, please remember to remute your mic. With that, let me go to my list. First up is Alex Baumhart.
Hi, y'all. Alex Baumhart with the Oregon Capitol Chronicle. How many or what percentage of these do you know so far that have been human caused versus naturally caused? And with that, is there any reason to believe it's sort of public information campaigns about fire have been less successful this year than the past couple of years?
Kyle, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thank you for the question, Alex. So as we looked at that map, some of the older fires were generally human related. Most of them are all still under investigation, so I don't have specific causes for you. The new ones, especially that group in the Cascade Crest, are going to be primarily lightning caused. And what it amounts to is a broad spectrum of starts, new starts, things that we are chasing right now. And so really doubling down on asking the public for help, keeping human-caused fires off the map. We have our hands full already, more lightning coming. We can address that as long as our resources are not busy dealing with other human-caused fires. In terms of prevention efforts, I looked at the numbers this morning, and prior to the lightning coming through, we were actually tracking slightly less than our average statewide fires from human causes, but the conditions are worse this year, which is what's resulting in these larger fires. And so with fewer starts resulting in more acres, we know that it's even more critical that people are careful with their recreation, backyard activities, whatever that might be. So really just putting out an ask, a plea for the public's help in keeping any new fire starts off the map.
Thank you, Kyle. Next up is Joelle Jones.
Hi there, Joelle Jones with Coin 6 News. My question is kind of more timely for today. I'm curious to know if this morning's tech outage impacted the wildfire response, as I know you guys have a lot of resources on the ground. And then my follow-up question is for the governor, if she's considering declaring a state of emergency, as we've seen local governments do.
Aaron, would you like to take the first half and then we'll bounce over?
Absolutely. So right now we have not had that strike did not impact at all our oral alert system, which is really important, and our Oregon emergency response system. So neither of those systems were impacted by this. Statewide 911 operations continue.
Governor?
Thank you, Joelle, and thank you for the question. And just also on the rest of state enterprise, our systems have been minimally impacted by the tech issues this morning that are international. So, but very pleased that our oral alert is still functioning very without hindrance. So that's really important. People need to sign up. I have declared a emergency declaration for the whole state. We're still doing the individual conflagration declarations that relate to structural fire, but as the declaration it's been moving fast. Only a few days ago, I believe, that will be extended statewide through October. We've got months ahead of us. So making sure we are as nimble as possible to respond. And our local emergency managers, our local government leaders, we have great communication structures within the state, great collaboration. And so we're making sure we are prepared at any moment to meet the needs out there.
All right, next up is Claire Rush.
Hello, Claire Rush with the Associated Press. Have any structures burned or have there been any human injuries? And just a follow-up question, Large Creek, Cow Valley were described as good news fires. What would you describe as the bad news fires at the moment, the ones that are most dangerous and that people should be keeping an eye on the most? Thank you.
Mariana?
Thank you for the question. Many of these fires have experienced structural loss. Many of the fires have registered certain numbers between 5 or 6 and some words up to 15. Unfortunately, at this point, many of them are in the initial phase of fire, and so we are in assessment. But if you go to the Northwest Coordination Center and look at the large fire map, for the fires that are good news, such as large, that means that the fire is at a place where we feel comfortable between the Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal and ODF that we can turn that back to the local district. That's good news because that releases structural resources and ODF and contract resources to go to other fires. And so when we say good news, it means that the local capacity feels that they can hold that fire. The bad news fires, I would say, are those areas that we just talked about where we feel challenging, evolving situation. That's the Durkee fire, that's the Umatilla, the Grant fire, the Falls fire, and then as Deputy Director indicated, along the Spine, Crater Lake area. But we have experienced structural loss. We're currently in initial assessment of those losses, and those individual losses are reported on the Northwest Coordination Center website.
All right, next up is Christina Giardinelli. I'm going to say it wrong. Giardinelli.
No worries. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, a quick follow-up to a couple of those questions. Could you point out one or two particular fires where structures are significantly at risk at the moment? And then for the governor, a follow-up to the conversation about today's Microsoft issues. Could you detail a little bit more why you feel that this has not had a big impact on the state of Oregon? Are there systems in place to diversify the type of software that we use? And is that why it has not impacted? Like, do all state agencies work off the same software systems and have not worked off of Microsoft software systems that are at play in this strike? Can you detail a little bit more, the state of that? And then, some hospitals have been impacted as well as airports. So is there any consideration for a state of emergency based on this technological issues? And if not, why? Thanks. Sorry for the long-winded questions.
Why don't we do Governor? Would you like to answer that one first, and then Mariana?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question. Well, one of the things I will say is, I'll be honest, I'm going to just focus on fire just for a second, only because I've been watching those maps multiple times a day, to know that places like Vail and Lone Rock, Huntington, we have had towns in danger, and I just can't say enough about the coordinated response through our conflagration orders and just the great work on the ground. And I think the big message right now is this is a lot right now. We're doing everything we can with the resources we have, and we are going to need everyone's assistance to make sure this doesn't get worse. Mother Nature might not cooperate with us, and the conditions on the ground are not great. So people need to be aware, do their part. And I can't thank the folks on the ground enough for literally keeping fires, away from, communities at this point. So just want to just say that specifically. As it relates to the CrowdStrike IT incident, my comments were about state enterprise. We are assessing in terms of state governments, the impact there. I know it's having some private sector impact, for example, hospitals and the airports. We are assessing. This is a evolving situation just of today. I'm not aware. Some of it is getting resolved, but we are still assessing. And, if we need to do anything more, we will certainly look into that. But right now, from a state government perspective, we'll continue to assess and watch over the situation, but we are not experiencing any significant issues at the moment. But I can't speak to any more detail than that, not being the IT expert. So thank you.
Mariana?
Thank you, Christina. Wherever the Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal is mobilized currently is where we have concerns about the locals' capacity to help defend those areas, communities, and structures. And we are on multiple fires. I will speak specifically to a few of them, as we indicated, the city of Spray, the community of Spray, the community of Monument, the community of IZ, outside of Falls on the north side. Those communities are in direct connection with our teams as we are seeing active fire in those areas. I will say that our governor has paved the way to remove obstacles and receive resources very quickly with our state of emergency early before this event occurred, which allowed us to bring in resources and early conflagration. Those are key in making us successful in defense of those communities. And so, Christina, the community of Durkee, as I indicated, we're currently mobilizing as we speak. Oregon Department of Forestry's work in Ukiah. And so, as I said, those areas, the series of fires are dynamic, complex, and challenging, and that's where our efforts are currently. And the shout out to the other fires. Those are small because our local resources have kept them small, but there are fires that we do not know about. These are challenging times. And as we work with the governor's office and OEM, our key is to prioritize life safety.
Thank you. Next up is John Adams.
Hey, this is John Adams with KGW News out of Portland. The governor said that the fire season is off to a pretty strong start here, and we've had a couple success stories across the state. but what is the concern for the level of fatigue that might set in over time as we have crews all across the state? How do you keep people fresh with months ahead of this potentially still this year?
Kyle and Mariana, if you want to kind of bounce off of each other with that one.
Yeah, that's a great question and I appreciate it. It's absolutely part of the calculus right now, right? It's July 19th and we are already from a fuel condition wise at a spot where we're typically be late August. And so we know that this is going to be a long fight ahead of us. And that's in our planning, that's in our resource allocation, that's in our reliance on our partners, right? We need the help from beyond the state. We are going to be relying on others coming in so that we can give our folks a few days off so they can get back into the fight. And we're managing that already in terms of how we're rotating our teams, when we're bringing them back, where we're putting them. That's all part of the calculus. It's just as important as the strategy on the individual fires themselves, because yes, this is going to be a long duration. It's a marathon. And again, back to my prevention request, the more fires we can keep from happening from human causes, the easier our job is for the rest of the probably 60 days that we've got in front of us here. Chief?
I would just add that we are fighting fire like it's August 19th, not July 19th. And it is important that our number one asset, which is our firefighters, are kept safe. And so that is something that we constantly do in terms of rotation. How many days do they have in? How many hours do they have in? And then what kind of rest do they need before they can be remobilized? So our number one asset is our firefighters. That's our number one priority, as the governor indicated, her thanks to those on the ground. And then I will just echo, we as Oregonians have a role in protecting Oregon from fires. And so anything we can do to help prevent new starts from human-caused fires is our main priority prevention message.
Thank you. Next up is Barrett Thorson.
Hi, yeah, I am wondering a little bit about, this was kind of mentioned a little bit already, but what additional resources can the governor bring to bear on the wildfires burning here in Eastern Oregon of all the sizes? And then kind of a follow-up with that, what can the state do for people who are losing their homes, losing forage for cattle, fencing, etc.?
Governor, would you like to answer that, or Kyle?
Or I can jump in on that one a little bit to be able to provide information. So I mentioned that website, that's wildfire.oregon.gov. That's going to be a great resource to see what are some of those recovery programs that are otherwise available. We are continually putting out additional information with 211 for the public to be able to use as a resource. So after we've done the assessments and we've identified what some of those damages are, there's going to be additional information that's going to go out about how we can recover. And your agencies are going to be working very hard to bring in all those resources to best support us.
Thank you, Erin. All right. Next up would be Joni Land.
Hi there, yeah, Joni Land, OPB. I just wanted to get some clarification on which areas specifically are expected to have significant lightning strikes this weekend and therefore are at risk for fires caused by those strikes.